Good morning. Let's carry on rejoicing that the grace of God is with us. May we all be aware of that. After seeing the many things that are being announced and life is moving steadily, it looks like there's a big wheel going. In my age, you come to think about it sometimes. What got this whole thing going? There's a school that starts. There's a church. There's many things in church. There's your lives and my life, and somehow they're all going. And somebody got something going. How come, or what does it take to keep something going? I have tried and continue to try to tell my children that when you have something going, that means somebody is pushing something. And there's a very good chance that somebody is just taking a ride. And so that means that if I'm taking a ride, someone else will have to push more. Sometimes it does us well to look at ourselves and see, am I the ride taker or am I a contributor? It is totally okay if you are physically disabled or injured or for whatever reason not mobile, that somebody else grabs the wheelchair and pushes you. In fact, it's an opportunity for the one that's pushing. It's totally right for parents to carry their little babies and hold a hand out to the youngsters that have a hard time walking because they cannot at their level or at their age. But we all hope that we can outgrow that and become contributors to what I refer to the wheel that's turning. I have observed in life, in my own life, and try to continue to learn that so many things either contribute or do the opposite, and sometimes we are blind to that. So we are in part 2 of a series of messages that will have 3 parts. And that is called the well-trained family or the well-trained home. If you will remember, we had a message on this in December sometime, and we had 3 points that we covered at the time. I know that we could be sitting here and you could be challenging me and say, Ronald, that doesn't sound very spiritual. You know, being well-behaved and well-trained, what's spiritual about that? And yeah, we could perhaps go to that. As I prepared and was trying to get myself ready, and you try to think deep and ask the good Lord to give insight when it comes to messages like these. A few different pictures came to mind. Things that I think I have seen in my life, and that is that sometimes we could say, well, our parents or grandparents, or maybe some of you would remember your grandpa or your grandparents of being very strict, and then we would usually refer to things like respectfulness or politeness or and those kind of things. And I think I think I know what we're talking about. Very strict. You don't do that. You do it this way. Always that way. And then we came to interpret that as just being strict and not being spiritual, which was probably true. And so then we decided we will become spiritual. And in some cases, we backed away from that extreme strictness, which was probably right. Now, I have a question for you. So let's say we would now end up just being spiritual and not having it well under control about being respectful, having politeness among us. What kind of a people would we be? Very spiritual, disrespectful, impolite. We have completely improved Grandpa's overly strictness. part of that is what has borne these messages. I am aware of it, and I know that a lot of pain and a lot of hurt has happened due to not having a proper balance, from being very, very high, the expectations be very, very high and very, very strict. But on the other hand, we can lose it to the side where we apply only grace. And so as we will go through these next points, I want you to listen with this, that most of these points, they have a level of tolerance. They're not all black and white. So last time we had the point about keeping relationships in the family. We talked about who is the influencer, and then we talked about the attitudes. Today we will cover 3 points, and 2 of them go very, very hand in hand. So my first point is respectable behavior. And the next point is, I have to make such large font that I can read it, so now it's many pages. Then the next point is polite behavior. And the last point, or the third point today, is how important is orderliness. Respectable behavior, teaching our children respect. As I pondered on this, and I want to be practical as good as I can, and yet we want to get the value of this as well, is if, let's just say you have a young child, we raise our children and we lack to teach them respect. We have them well spiritually aware of, the plan of salvation is very clear and those kind of things, but they are not taught to be respectable. And then when they grow up as individuals, we come to 1 Corinthians chapter 8 or to Romans chapter 14, where we have teachings on how we are supposed to edify each other. Did I say 1 Corinthians 8 is what I meant if I said it differently? How to have an attitude of edifying towards each other. We are actually untrained to be good spiritual people, brothers and sisters. And so these are the things that we see, and others have told me about their churches where you have a church full of born-again people, and yet it's a chaos in many cases, and it's due to not understanding the value of respect. And so when I think about it that way, we could say respect is a very spiritual thing, but we will not call it that. Proverbs 22 verse 15 is a verse I'm using, and I'll be using a few verses here to bring my point. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. So let's just accept this. Your beautiful little children that you're holding on your lap, that you're sending to school, they are bound with foolishness. Nothing to minimize anybody here. That's just how they came to this world. And that's bound to their heart, and somebody will have to train them otherwise. And then there is actually an advice followed by that. But the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. I wish that we all understand this. This is more than just having a rod beating among your children. It is a lot more. And in some cases, it might not be the rod, but it is the correction. But it is necessary in order to drive foolishness away. Foolishness, if you would go to the dictionary, simply calls it, in this context, a want of wisdom. So no children ever were born with wisdom. If there's wisdom today in me or in you, that's been taught. That's never natural. It's been observed, it's been taught. Children grow up and become smart, and we rejoice. You know what? You have a youngster, and all of a sudden you realize that the little baby, maybe at 2 weeks old, is becoming smart. It sees its own hand moving. It watches its own hands. Probably one of the first signs that your children are mentally alert or smart. It's something that we watch every child that is born. Will the child be smart? And it's something to celebrate. They learn to walk or to take steps. They learn to say words, and on it goes. They learn to do some jobs, and we call them smart. No problem. I like to call my little grandchildren smart, or my own children, but my children know that at some point, Dad is not very impressed with just being smart. In fact, I must tell you this, that I have told my children this, that actually nobody appreciates a very smart adult. Did you know that? Being smart is actually not very, nothing to be proud about. And that is where we will be talking today a little bit. Unless you can become wise, a smarty is a selfish person, unable to accept correction. I call it smarty. Smarties are focused on self. Smarties cannot work with other people's ideas. And the Bible calls some of this foolishness. Or I will call it disrespectfulness. It is simply blocking maturity and wisdom. Therefore, it's worth to have a subject on respect in the home. Ephesians 6 verse 2. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. And this is the promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. So as parents, as we raise our children, let's bring it to there where we expect them to honor us. It might sound very selfish. It might sound a little bit like the grandpa way, but it is actually biblical. This is actually allowing our children to develop into a life that can truly grow and be a blessing. Where this is applied, the expectation of obedience, it becomes simply a general normal. It can be a general normal in your home that the children honor mom and dad. It can be a normal in your home that siblings learn to compliment each other. There's respect for each other as siblings. This can be a normal. You know, have you ever thought about this? Some of these things we were born with or raised up with, it's a good thing that we continue to start a meal once everybody is ready. It's probably a normal in your home. Everybody gets to the table before we start eating. Sometimes that's where you add your prayer for your meal. It's a good thing. What about staying at the table till everybody is done? That's still very respectable. It's a good thing to teach your children. You're not leaving the table while others are eating. We're respecting them. What about the respect to other people or another person? I told you last time I preached, and I'm going to use a few more references this time, but when you go to the Old Testament laws, this thing was very close to God's heart, that Israel would have a good level of respect towards each other. So I have often thought and liked to think about it, what Israel was like when they actually walked out of Egypt. If they did not know these things and therefore did not exercise them, we know that Israel was a very, very chaotic people. Very chaotic, and I think they were. And so God came up with laws in the book of Leviticus and Exodus for your own interest. Read it sometimes. It's interesting what kind of detail God is using, and we're not going to go there. But here's one. We're talking about respecting other people. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor the face of the old men and fear thy God. I am the Lord. Look at this, young boys and girls. Have you exercised this when you see an older person and it actually is this way? You don't need to go and ask, what's your age? God made it simpler. You look at them, and if you see they have gray hair, it's simply your and my responsibility to now stand up and give them a place. Did you know that? That's biblical respect. And as parents, we teach that. We don't necessarily just say the gray hair ones, but it's speaking about an age level. The other day, apparently, I had made a mistake, and I said somebody of you was the oldest of the youngest half, and I think I had those names crisscrossed. But, there's a reason why I did that, because I had some of this in mind. We should be willing to exercise that. And those of us that are in this age, we need to be open to accept that. We're really counterproductive if somebody comes to you as an older person and honors you, and you then say, oh, no, me Brooks Nehizai, or whatever the honor was. You know what? We are just as disrespectful as the children that run in front of you when you need room to walk. So this is both sides. Let's make it work. God said so. Leviticus 19, verse 14. This is a little bit further away, but we could be doing this too. Thou shalt not curse the deaf. Like meaning if somebody doesn't understand you, then you would speak something bad about it. So thank God, as far as I know, we have no deaf person among us as a church family, and very rarely we find deaf people in our midst. Thank God. Everybody we wish could hear. But you know what? I want to add something that is not exactly from the Bible, but this is when I am in a circle where the other person doesn't speak my language. And I will make an opportunity, because he doesn't understand my language, to actually say something bad about that person because he doesn't understand. That's very, very disrespectful. Even in the New Testament, we have rebuke not an elder. That goes back to the hoary head. Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father. It does not at all indicate that the elders don't need to be corrected or that they are wrong sometimes. They are, but it is very important as to how we approach it. Years ago, somebody said, it is not what you say that people will remember. It is how you said it. And I think that is very important that we understand that. Many times people find out I hurt somebody and they're perplexed. Why does that person feel hurt? I didn't say anything bad, and you really didn't, but the way you said it, it was just the wrong way. So we need to teach this to our children. When your young children come up and they are grumpy, maybe just too early in the morning, and they are grumpy and they speak in a grumpy way, teach them not to speak like that. They're tearing it down. 1 Peter 2:17, and I'm not sure exactly what the Babylonian church was like, but I think that's where it was written to. Peter felt it on his heart to remind them, honor all men. Something truly a total lifetime responsibility to do it ourselves, to teach our children, to watch them. Are they honoring other people? Do they have an honoring attitude? Give the recognition to the other person. Sometimes, I know years ago I was a young teenager, and our neighbor's boy came to us. He was just 2 years younger than me. So I was maybe 14 and he was 12 or something like that. And this was early morning, and he came into the barn, and he was a very polite young boy. And so he greeted me and my dad. We were there. He greeted us, and he said, good morning, and in a good, polite way. And my dad, of course, he greeted him too. And I was standing among the cows, and I didn't say good morning. Maybe too smart. Later, my dad asked me, why didn't you greet him? He's a person. He also needs your recognition. No, I thank God today. I think most of you I greeted today, didn't I? I didn't want to just walk by you. It would be a very, very sad world to live in if we would completely neglect this. But sometimes we do. We should greet. You know what? I think this might be the Ronald Kornelsen version of this verse, but I think we should even handshake more than what we do, in a friendly way, in a way that the other person realizes that you've been noticed and that I appreciate you. Make room for those that need room, extra room. Be aware of what's going on around you. And you know what? The young children might apply this to their own selves. Don't run around in crowds Like, you're doing a good job. I'm not saying this because things are off. Don't run around in church or don't run around in public places. It's not the place for it. Do you have a hard time with that? I can imagine. Some young children have a hard time with that. I would like to run after church. This would be a very good place for me to run. I need some action. You know what? But listen, there's another one here, and I have this for the ones that are older, and that is stay off the baseball court and the soccer field while they're playing. You know, it's not your place. Give room for action. I think we don't have a problem, do we? We wouldn't really enjoy if all our older people were sitting around in the soccer field and we had to play around that obstacle. We all have our places, and it's good. We share them. Expect the older people to be hard at hearing. You know what? This is a good thing to teach our young children. When you speak to the older, speak up a little bit louder. It's embarrassing for the older person, and that would be including myself, to steadily have to say, what? I'm sorry, what did you say? Speak clear. You know, IMF Brotherhood even has heard this from time to time. Let's be a little bit more respectable. Speak it out well. Then we come to respecting the property. Now I know, excuse me, that you will all probably expect me to speak about other people's property. But I wanted to start a little closer than that. Let's just never allow disrespectful behavior, even if it doesn't hurt. So, thinking about property, we live in a very consumerism. That word is a hard word, but consumerism, I think I say that correct. What it means is, oh, that's kaput, I'll just buy another one like that. That's broken, we'll just buy another one. That's consumerism. You just buy, you just use and buy. It's disposable. See, nowadays we have so much of that. And so with this you don't really feel like you need to take good care of a paper cup like this. Who will really care if this cup at the end of the day is kaput? We're just buying another one tomorrow. In fact, we might already have 12 of those in this. But it tends to also create that kind of a mentality that I will disrespect the cup. If it is there, I just step on it. I don't take care, which is probably its place, but it tends to create an attitude of disrespect. So as parents, you got something on your hands that grandparents who used to have only glass cups, that would have been the only thing available probably, or well, maybe from steel. Plastic just came up in my lifetime. But that we have a view on that. For example, let me give you a few examples. Well, I already gave you one example. What about the children come home and they have an old scribbler from school and they just toss that back and forth. It flies through the room a few times, it tears to a few more pieces, and eventually the fun is over. It has created a sense of disrespect. And so that's why we have garbages in our house where we put those things in and they don't create a disrespectful behavior. Or sometimes we might just throw the book on the table, maybe in front of the teacher, always very impolite. Never throw things in front of people. We throw things at the dogs and at the pigs, but don't throw things at people. Don't throw your food around. It's way too precious. It's disrespectful. Or running around while eating. You know, it's a good thing to teach the children. Now we're eating, and that's all we're doing right now. We're not playing and eating. Or breaking the old toys. Maybe you have a doll that has a foot or a hand missing, and therefore we're just going to tear it up just for fun. You know what? It creates a level of disrespect. And most likely when we go to the next people's place, we're going to do the same thing there. And it creates disrespect. Value the things that you have. Don't become covetous. Don't become lovers of the things. I hope you get what I mean. Value the things that you have. If it's worth to have it, it's worth to respect it. To value is also to respect other people's property as well. So Let's teach our children, especially now regarding other people's property. You ask before using it. Don't decrease the value of something. For example, you can be writing on the walls, maybe at school or outside of church or wherever it is. We're destroying somebody else's property. You and I can walk away. We might laugh at that. We could be writing on the walls, or we could be writing on the benches in church this morning, and we are destroying somebody else's property, and it might be a joke to some people, but it's really very disrespectful. I'm spinning around with my four-wheelers on the road. It doesn't necessarily destroy the road, but it looks disrespectful. It is public property. If you need a place to spin, provide something. It is not bad to be spinning, but it needs to be done at the right place. Or making stuff dirty. You know what? This is where it really comes to where I said before, where some people take a ride. I can leave a public place, dirty. Maybe throw something away. Just throw it, whatever. Throw it against the walls. Let it smash. Now somebody else has to come along. I am a rider. I'm a destroyer. When we go along the roads, what we will notice sometimes, and let's take note, we might see that there's a broken sign. Somebody shot through it just for fun, or somebody bent it over. Somebody has done that. Have you ever thought about it? That you are either of the one or of the others. If you are the one that breaks or makes things messy, you are taking a ride. And somebody has to carry you. There's nothing to be very proud of that. So there's two kinds of people. There's the one kind that contribute to a beautiful and a good community, or a circle, school, church, community. And there's the other kind, and that is that tear down. Which of the two are you? This is really how it works. It takes many people to build of what one will destroy. What about a nice clean washroom in public? I think many of us have gone into washrooms and that we kind of curled our noses and said this is a bad place. But how many times am I part of that? Or a nice clean yard and I come and I ruin it. One person can so many times ruin what many people have to build up. One disrespectful person can often set the flavor for a big group of people. Respect public orders or rules. Rules and orders are to be respected. And here we could talk a long time, and I want to keep this simple. But many of us actually would have like a handbook for the school children. If school is starting again tomorrow, you might have a handbook from the school. And it has its rules and it has its regulations. You know what? Let's respect that. Maybe it says something in that handbook that you personally wouldn't feel that it is necessary, it doesn't apply. Your conviction wouldn't allow or would allow for it. You know what? This is a good exercise. Many of us consider ourselves perhaps very respectful, and I think we are close to right. How do you as a parent deal when in the handbook it might say, it might give even a length of sleeve or dress or hair or, many practical things, and you look at that, would it ever cross your mind and say, that's ridiculous? I don't agree with this. That might all be true, that it is ridiculous, and it might even be true that you don't agree with it. But here's your chance to be respectful or to disrespect. Many times, even adults come to this where they become smarties. And what I mean with that is my opinion is valued higher than the rule that is set by somebody that has the authority to put it. And I decide that I don't need to follow the rules. You know what? We're creating grounds for a bad functioning generation. whether it makes sense, whether you agree, you know what? Choose to respect. This is how we teach by example our children to be either respectful or to be disrespectful. There's traffic signs on the road. Years ago, I was driving to work at that time to Viter Machine, and I had my own little road. I say my own. It wasn't my own, but I was the only one driving it, as it seemed. In 10 years, I maybe met about 5 people there. One day, as I'm going to work, somebody put up a stop sign in the middle of my distance. Here's a stop sign. I'm the only one ever riding here. I can look miles on both sides, see if somebody's coming. What would you suggest? Should I take a stop? Or because this is adding time on the road. It's taking away from my punch clock. Do I respect, or do I was smart enough to know that there was no need for a stop sign. My opinion was very clear that it was not necessary. But I had a choice to be smart or to be respectful. In life, we find many of those things. So be happy if the school handbook, if the speed limit, if the law has things that you do not agree with. This is the place where you can practice respectfulness. We're coming to our next point, and we covered the largest point, so we will polite behavior. Like I said, these two go very hand in hand. I had a hard time to put some of these in which of the two, but to be polite publicly, which we all wish, you need to be polite privately. Recently, Marcela and me, we at our house, we had invited a couple. The couple is present today, but I'm not going to use the name. 2 children. And so we invited this couple over, and we had a very good evening. They had 2 children, younger than ours, so they had to play by themselves. At the end of the evening, this couple left, and I said to Marcela this. I said, back in the days when we had young children, we had some really, really good reading material as to how to raise your children. And as most books, so was this, that's so high you can feel I'm not going to attain that level ever in life. Okay, sometimes you get discouraged. Our children never are that respectful, that polite, and I'm not that good, and neither is my wife. And so we kind of, but it's still very good material. I think it's still available. At the end of the evening, I told Marcela, I said, you know what, this couple with their 2 children, they have reached exactly that level. 2 polite children all evening long, no major interference. The children played well, we visited well, and everybody went home happy. What a life, eh? What a life. I was thinking I should ask that couple to come and teach us this point, but I haven't. Okay, so to be polite publicly, you will need to be polite privately. So how do we teach our children to be all themselves, or open to express their feelings? If you're Panners, you want your children to be Panners. If you're Kornelsens, you want them to be Kornelsens. And if they're whatever else, you want them to just be themselves. And amen, let's do that. Let's not put pressure on it. But nonetheless, we got to somehow teach polite behavior. And home is the best place to start. Many parents have been very ashamed away from home. I'm standing in front of you. I don't want to minimize our children, but I've been very embarrassed at times. And I realize that these things need to be taught at home. Devotion time around your table as a family is a very, very perfect place to teach children a polite behavior during church service. There's places for that. We can teach our children that there's places where you are seen but not heard. We teach our children not to whisper while somebody else is speaking. That's why the teachers are pretty set on that. It's impolite for you to be sitting around and whispering. Nobody does, as far as I can see right now. I wasn't sure what all to add to here, but somehow this slipped into here too, and I'm going to mention it. It's perhaps not even very polite to sit in church and sleep. I'm not sure. Is anybody sleeping here? Anyway, that would be a good time to wake up now. If you feel that you're ready there sleeping, It's good for you to stand up and maybe walk back out and have a drink of water. And I say this with nobody in mind, because I could be caught next thing in here. Or maybe that's the time for the ushers to, anyway. It becomes disrespectful. Improper manners. Speaking in a way that you spit your friend in the face. Nobody really appreciates that much. Are you aware whether you do that or not? Maybe you're speaking too loud. Maybe you don't cover when you cough. Or the mouth is wide open when you chew. It's just really good to have those things kind of in place, boys, before you go and ask the girls to date, because that could be the reason why they don't want that, or girls likewise. Somehow after marriage, we could have testimonies on that. Some of those things get corrected. It's not necessarily very pleasant. Leaving your mess for someone to clean up after you. Have you ever thought about that? It's a good thing to teach your children. If you make a mess, you clean it up. It's very easy for mom to come by and wipe the footprints and wipe the cabinet prints because somebody was just too lazy or too quick or too fast and didn't catch on. It's good, polite manners to teach children. You clean up behind yourself. Depends on age. Friendliness is also a part of being polite. Doing or offering a favor. Teach your children, look, that lady in Co-op store or in Walmart might just need a hand. Go offer a hand. Open the door for her or for him. It's a good thing, boys, to exercise a sister first, especially if it's not dark. You open the door. Here's a hint. If it's dark outside, man, you go out first. If it's bright, you let the ladies go out first. That's the rule. Don't send the ladies into the dark and then follow after. Offer a hand at the carry-out. This is good things. We could touch people's lives to the point where they would turn to Christ by just being polite, being friendly, whatever we call that. Be friendly to the opposite gender. Be polite to them. Whether you deal with a girl or whether you deal with ladies or men. Bring the chair out for your sister, brothers. This is a good thing. Or clean the shoes for your brother. I have a sister. She cleaned my shoes all my life, and then I found out that was actually a good deed that she had done. Something my mom had she just taught the girls, not the boys, that they were served. Speak when it's your turn. I'm embarrassed to stand in front of you. This is an area that I have to grow. Speak when it's your turn and hold the tone of your voice in a way that it is right. And I have my last point, and we will just have to borrow a little bit of time of after 12. How important is orderliness? That might be a question. Is it spiritual? It was a very big deal to God. The Israelites, go again to the Old Testament laws, they were taught a lot of orderliness. Jesus, when he fed the 5,000, have you ever thought about it? How orderly he was? There were rows of 50 and 100. So we can imagine that the disciples walked and they counted, there's 2 of you that need to come and sit over here. Orderliness. Orderliness creates an atmosphere. So there needs to be structured time slots. Getting up time. There should be an order in your home. It makes everything easier if everybody knows at what time we're getting up in the day. And then be on time. Be on time for school. Be on time for your meals. Be on time going to school or to work or to church. And then there should be a time when we end the day. I know there's a chance that some of you could be sitting right now and say, Ronald, that is very, very complicated to me. Well, I'm standing in front of you, to me as well. Very complicated. Thank God for my wife. But you know what? When we got that thing settled, where everybody knows when we get up and when we get down, and when we start to eat, when we go to church, even I got that more or less under my belt, all of a sudden you have a lot of stress gone from everyday living. Just normal. It's time to get up. There needs to be structure. We clean up before we go to bed. We have a story time and we relax. And finally, everybody in a relaxed way goes to bed. And the day is ending well. Did you ever think about it? God made the day. God also made the night. It's part of God's order. I don't want to spiritualize this too far, but there is a key to success by following this plan. Have you ever thought about robbery and evil? So much of that takes care or takes an advantage of night and darkness, whereas working and living takes an advantage of day or night. Like, it's not a clear cut, but just think about it a little bit. There was this saying, and I think it's still around and maybe even be true still, and that is, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy and wise. All of the above, when in good order, add a lot of smoothness to the day. There's a lot of, I'm afraid to say, but I think there's a lot of parenting, they're really stressed out, and that is because orderliness is missing. We don't know yet when we will go to bed tonight, and neither do we know when we will get up in the morning. We just know that the school is going to start and it's going to be a stressful time to get ready. You know what? This could be where Sunday morning you're laying in bed as a husband and wife, and you just like that the day is a little later, and just stretch and yawn and just take another breath and turn around. And I'm going to use us as men, but your wife might just poke you a little bit and say, you know what, if we don't want to get angry later when it's time to go to church, we will have to get out of bed now. Most of us as men, we're smart. We would actually be wise to listen to that. There's order. Maybe the husband would say the same thing to his wife. I will leave that up to you. And then later when we go to church, the whole family comes peacefully to church. When we were young family, Pastor Milton taught us that, and he believed in this. I'm not sure that we can prove it, but he said if all families would be ready to go to church 5 minutes before it's actually time to leave home, we will have a revival in our church. So since then, those of you that are my age, I think you have always been ready and set on the chairs and couches and just waited for the clock to turn the right time and leave to church. But it sure makes a big difference whether you can come to church relaxed or whether the stress level is too high to have a conversation while we go to church. And you feel guilty. And same thing with all other things in church, in life. Many children leave home from school under stress because we had to rush and push the last 3 minutes. Whether it's spiritual or not, but orderliness brings a lot of life into every home. My Uncle Joe, who passed away years ago, he had a 10 o'clock principle for the boys that came dating his girls. And I challenged him at the time because I was dating as well. And I said, what is important about 10 o'clock? Does it make a difference when I come? Like if I show up at 7 and leave at 10, or if I come at 6 and leave at 10, is it a difference? He said, it makes no difference. So I said, so if I come at 5 o'clock, it's still 10. Yeah, it's still 10 o'clock. And I said, Uncle Joe, I need your teaching. And he says, Ronald, here's why. At 10 o'clock, the day is over and the bad stuff starts to happen. It doesn't matter when you start, but the day is over. I think there's a principle to that. Cleanliness. I'll keep going here. Again, God was teaching Israel very, very detailed on cleanliness. Wash their hands. They were to wash their beds and not to touch food before eating and all that. So a well cleaned up kitchen and dining room automatically, listen to this, automatically generates a behavior. It generates a behavior. A clean kitchen, a clean dining room generates a behavior of carefulness. You don't teach your sons and little girls and boys very often that, hey, you left a mark behind, you clean it up. That they catch on. That's a good life to live. It's nothing very spiritual about it, but it's a good life. It will impact good character. It impacts thinking patterns. It forms a part of a quality thinking. It's so unfortunate that people have completely lost, I'm not thinking of any of you, a good quality thinking pattern. We're just selfish. Somebody's going to clean up after me. And most of the time it might be mom or dad. Let's not do that, but clean it up. A good, clean place creates a better self-discipline. It puts a better morale. It teaches your children to have a good quality cleaning practices. Dishes after every meal, or at least the minimal of every day, are all done and washed and nicely put away. We get used to disorder. It would be a good practice to sometimes ask, do you see an eyesore on my place? Years ago, a man asked me, Ronald, come over. Do you see any eyesore at my place? I think I have one of the beautifulest places. Do you see any eyesores? I want to correct that. And I said, what's that thing right in front of your door? That's an old furnace that's been sitting there for a few years. Have you ever noticed that? Oh, no, I never thought. I just saw my big, nice lawn. Well, I think your visitors see the furnace and not the lawn. You know what? We can get used to some of that. Provide a good place to come back to. A made-up bed in the morning. It's a good exercise. Teach your children to leave the room clean before they start the day, because then you have a good place to come back to. It's so good. Everyone likes to come to a nice place. Well, you create your own. A cleaned-up dining room is a good place to wake up to, or kitchen, or car garage, or a cleaned-up workplace. Or a chicken coop, some of you might have those, or your garden shed. Put very high priority in training your children this. When you train as a soldier, it's being told that one of the first things that soldiers get taught is to clean up. Stay clean and be clean. In business, when productivity and good morale and attitude and quality starts to fail at a workplace, people try many things, but one of the most successful things is just clean the place up. Just have it very clean. Rinse the floors, bring improvement. These things alone already bring a different morale, a different lifestyle. And these same things apply to our family. God bless us all. We have 3 more points to cover. That's next time I'll be here. And that is hospitality, the opportunity to invest, maintaining physical health, and financial stewardship. God bless you all. Let's keep happy.